Hello guys, I'm here with a new series. Hey guys, I released new episodes for my other series. I'm not sure if you guys still want me to continue those series. Now here is the Slytherin selection, the episode of Season 1 or Book 1. Chapter 7. As Harry stepped into the final room, Harry was surprised to see the Mirror of Erised standing in the center. Even more surprising was the figure staring into the mirror, Professor Quirrell. Professor. Without turning around, Quirrell waved his wand. Ropes appeared out of the air and bound Harry's arms tightly to his side. Stunned, Harry dropped his wand to the ground. Quirrell slowly turned. Potter. Rather surprising. I knew I was being followed, but I thought it would be Severus. That overgrown bat has been looming over my shoulder all year. But now, with Dumbledore in London, I have all the time in the world to seize the Philosopher's Stone. Harry could feel a headache beginning to form, just from listening to Quirrell's words. Oddly, Quirrell's stutter seemed to have completely disappeared. The professor walked over to Harry and picked up Harry's wand from the ground. Professor Snape has been trying to stop you. Harry was desperately processing the new information. He has been interfering all year. I almost had the stone on Halloween when I released the troll into the school, but Snape recognized the distraction for what it was. He went directly to the third floor, and I couldn't even attempt to take the stone. On top of it all, he didn't even get himself properly eaten by that enormous mutt. Snape had been protecting the school. Harry knew that Granger and Weasley were wrong. Quirrell began to stalk back and forth in front of the Mirror of Erised. But now, here we are. No Snape, no Dumbledore, and Harry Potter helpless. This mirror is the key to finding the stone, I know, but how? I see myself with the stone, I see myself using it to make the elixir of life, and I see myself reviving my master. But how do I get the stone? Your master. Quirrell laughed. Surely you must have realized by now. What better use for the elixir of life than to revive the Dark Lord Voldemort? Harry's eyes went wide. Voldemort is dead. He died 10 years ago. If you think that Voldemort is dead, you are truly a fool. My master is with me always. Quirrell turned back to the mirror. Help me, master. Where is the stone? Is it in the mirror? Must I break it? Harry was convinced that Quirrell had gone mad. Horrifically, a reedy, rasping voice responded to Quirrell's question. The source of the voice appeared to be Quirrell himself, but Harry could plainly see that the professor's lips were not moving. Use the boy. Quirrell walked past Harry, and used his thick soled boot to kick Harry forward. Harry stumbled ahead, trying to catch his balance, and found himself standing directly in front of the mirror. What do you see, Potter? Tell me. Harry closed his eyes, squinting them shut with fear. Faced with a servant of Voldemort, Harry was desperate for help. He thought of the night his parents died, Halloween. He thought of his parents, and how they would have fought to protect him. He imagined them by his side, and wished for the 1000th time that his parents were still alive. Open your eyes, boy. Quirrell struck the back of Harry's head, and Harry's eyes snapped open. In the Mirror of Erised, Harry saw himself, older but not yet old, green eyes glinting. In his hand was the Philosopher's Stone. Harry's reflection waved his wand above the stone. A mist flowed outward from the stone, forming itself into two human silhouettes. The mist quickly gained color and substance, and Harry's reflection was soon flanked by the smiling forms of Lily and James Potter. I see, myself. Harry said. And my parents. Quirrell flicked his wand, and Harry was roughly shoved aside. Useless. The strange voice spoke again. Bring the boy back, let me face him. But master, Quirrell said, you are not yet strong enough. Obey. Yes, master. Quirrell began unwrapping his turban. When the last wrap was removed, Quirrell turned away from Harry. The back of Quirrell's head was hairless. Staring out from the back of Quirrell's head was a loathsome face, a slit nose, scaly lips pressed into a thin line, and two malevolent eyes with vertical pupils. The face of Voldemort. Harry Potter, do you see what I have become? A shadow of myself, leading a cursed existence, subsisting on unicorn blood for these past months. Voldemort took a rattling breath. Your parents, you want to bring them back. A great feat of magic, requiring great power. I have that power. I can teach you that power. But I need the stone, first. Slytherin could make you great. For a moment, Harry's heart wavered. He glanced again at the mirror. His reflection was now standing next to a handsome young wizard with neatly combed hair. The other wizard's smile was brilliant, but it did not reach his eyes. Together, Harry and young Voldemort waved their wands, and Harry's parents quickly coalesced out of mist. Trapped by its lies. Harry ripped his eyes away from the mirror. No, Harry said. You killed them. You're the reason I need to bring them back. I don't want your power. I'll find my own. From the corner of his eye, Harry saw the image in the mirror change yet again. Now, young Voldemort was lying on the ground, facing upward. Harry's reflection stood over Voldemort, wand pointed at Voldemort's heart. In the mirror, Harry's eyes flashed bright green, and he drew back his wand to cast a spell. Voldemort's rasping voice spoke to Quirrell, "He is of no use. Kill Potter." Harry spun. As Quirrell raised his wand, Harry leapt at the older wizard's arm, desperate to stop Quirrell from casting a spell. Harry's arms were still bound, but the impact knocked the wand out of Quirrell's hands. As Quirrell's wand clattered across the floor, the ropes binding Harry fell away. Quirrell and Harry began struggling, and Harry felt a blinding pain in his head, coming directly from his scar. Quirrell pushed Harry back, but his hands came away from Harry's body black and charred. "What is this?" Quirrell asked. "What is this magic?" Voldemort's voice hissed at Quirrell. "The wand, you fool." Quirrell scuttled across the ground, desperately reaching for his wand. Harry leapt at the wand as well, bumping into Quirrell. As they scrambled toward the wand, bumping and jostling each other, pain lanced through Harry's skull each time they touched. Quirrell was screaming, bits and pieces of his arms and torso were blackening and burning every time he touched Harry. Finally, with one desperate push, Quirrell lunged forward and grasped the wand. Harry was operating purely on instinct. He leapt on top of Quirrell's back. Staring into the snake-like face of Voldemort, Harry grabbed the sides of Quirrell's head. Quirrell's screams began again. Harry shut his eyes tight and began screaming, as well. At first, Harry's hands met resistance, but the resistance quickly crumbled away. Soon, Harry's palms touched. Quirrell's screaming had stopped. Harry opened his eyes. He was kneeling in a pile of ashes. There was a blazing pain in Harry's scar, and the room went black. Harry collapsed to the floor. Exclamation mark. Exclamation point. 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 When Harry awoke, he found himself in a bed in the hospital wing of Hogwarts. Professor Dumbledore was sitting by his side. "Professor. The Philosopher's Stone. It is safe, Harry," Dumbledore said gently. "I have you to thank for that. And Mr. Malfoy, Ms. Granger and Mr. Weasley, of course." "You know who was trying to take the stone," said Harry. Dumbledore nodded. "I suspected as much. Once I arrived in London, I realized that I had made a grave error. Although Hogwarts was in the capable hands of Professor McGonagall, I can say without hesitation that I am the only wizard whom Voldemort has ever feared. I returned to Hogwarts as quickly as possible, and was led to you by Ms. Granger." "What happened?" asked Harry. "I was prepared to ask you the same thing," Dumbledore said with a smile. "If you can tell me the what, Harry, I might be able to tell you the why." Harry related his experience with Voldemort and Quirrell. As he told his story, Harry realized that he didn't want to tell Dumbledore what he saw in the mirror. Harry simply said that he saw his family again. Dumbledore nodded and considered Harry's tale. "Harry, you are protected by a powerful magic that Voldemort does not understand. It led to his defeat on Halloween 10 years ago, and it led to his undoing at Hogwarts today." "What is it, Professor?" "Blood magic, Harry, but born of love. It is a powerful and ancient magic, brought about when your mother died to protect you. Her last act was an act of great selflessness, giving herself to certain death rather than allowing you to be harmed. The bond of blood and love between a mother and a child is strong. And while Voldemort may understand the power of blood, Harry, he has no capacity to understand love. Upon your mother's death, her love caused her magic to traverse the blood bond between you. Her magic protected you that night, and continues to do so. Indeed, it is so powerful that your mere touch was able to defeat Voldemort today. Will Voldemort be back?" "I'm afraid so, Harry. I have long suspected that Voldemort's return was only a matter of time. Unfortunately, it seems I was right." Harry was silent for a moment. "How did Voldemort possess Quirrell?" "Professor Quirrell spent a large portion of last summer in the forests of Albania," Dumbledore said. "I now believe that Professor Quirrell succumbed to the darkest of magics in that forest, and has been bound to Voldemort ever since. A tragedy, for he was a good man. Why couldn't Voldemort retrieve the Philosopher's Stone?" Dumbledore chuckled. "I enchanted the Mirror of Erise to conceal the stone. Anybody who wanted to use the stone would see themselves drinking the elixir of life, or some other variant on that theme. Harry's thoughts immediately went to the images of his resurrected parents he had seen in the mirror. However, Dumbledore said, a person who wanted to merely possess the stone would see themselves with the stone being placed in their pocket. Thus, the only person who could retrieve the Philosopher's Stone was a person who wanted the stone, but did not want to use it. This naturally disqualifies most thieves. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. Rather ingenious, if I do say so. Harry agreed, it was an incredible protection. If you were a thief and wanted the stone for yourself, you would want to use the stone, and would be unable to remove it. If you hired a thief to steal the stone for you, the thief would know that he could make more money by taking the stone and using it for himself. Again, the thief would want to use the stone, and would be unable to remove it. And if you hired a thief to steal the stone but didn't tell the thief what he was stealing, the thief would never see himself removing the stone at all. Only somebody truly innocent could remove the stone. Harry, I must ask you to keep Voldemort's return to yourself. Or, rather, between you and me. The wizarding world would be thrown into chaos if news of his return were to become generally known. Of course. We'll just say it was Professor Quirrell, then. I do not like the idea, because Quirinus was a good friend. However, I believe it would be best. Dumbledore stood. I should excuse myself, Harry. Your friends are outside and they are eager to speak with you. You need waste no more time on a doddering old man. If you would grant me one last indulgence, however. Dumbledore reached to Harry's bedside table, where a pile of candy and get-well cards had begun to accumulate. Dumbledore plucked a yellow candy from a small bag. I am unusually fond of lemon drops. Lemon drops? Dumbledore popped the candy into his mouth and began walking out of the hospital wing. Harry called out. Professor, wait. Dumbledore turned. What do you know about invisibility cloaks? Harry asked. Quite the non sequitur, Harry, Dumbledore said. Much of what I know about invisibility cloaks I owe to your father. Your father once loaned me an extraordinary invisibility cloak. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled mischievously. I cannot precisely remember what has become of it, but I imagine that it is being put to good use. Harry grinned. I imagine so, sir. Dumbledore turned once more to leave the hospital wing, but paused just before opening the door. His voice was grave, and he spoke without turning around. I wonder, Harry, why the Mirror of Erised did not bestow the Philosopher's Stone upon you. If your goal was to prevent the theft of the Philosopher's Stone, thereby to thwarting Voldemort's resurrection, you would not have wanted to use the stone. You would have wished to possess the stone to prevent its use. And yet, the stone remained locked in the mirror. Dumbledore turned slightly, so that Harry could see only the corner of his wrinkled eyes. Why did you want to use the Philosopher's Stone, Harry? Harry shrugged uncomfortably. Doesn't everybody wish to be immortal? Death is but the next great adventure, Dumbledore said. Think on that, if you will. Consider it a summer assignment. Or, perhaps, a favor to me. No exams will be given on the subject. As Dumbledore left, Pansy Parkinson came dashed into the hospital wing, followed more slowly by Draco Malfoy. Pansy sprinted to Harry's side. You're all Slytherin is talking about, Harry. The whole school is talking about you. Draco crossed his arms. Apparently, being a sacrificial pawn in a giant game of wizard's chess doesn't carry the same heft as dueling and defeating our own defense teacher for possession of priceless magical artifacts. You weren't a pawn, Draco. You were a bishop. Draco snorted. I was clobbered in the ribs, is what I was. Harry, Pansy said, you're famous. More famous than before. Fame isn't everything, said Harry, thinking back to Snape's words at the beginning of the semester. All the fame in the world wouldn't bring back his parents. It might not be everything, Pansy said, but it is something. When you get back to Slytherin, we're throwing you a party. Defending Hogwarts while Dumbledore was in London, you and Draco are absolute heroes. I bet Snape is thrilled with that, said Harry. Pansy ignored him. Make sure to sit by me at dinner tonight, I want to hear everything. Oh my gosh, I have to go choose something to wear. With those words, Pansy dashed out of the hospital wing. Draco remained, but stood several steps from Harry's bedside. Is it true? Draco asked. Did you really defeat Quirrell? Harry nodded. He almost knocked me cold at the end. Gave me the second worst headache of my life. Wow. My dad will want to hear all about it. You should visit this summer. We can practice for Quidditch tryouts next year. Draco finally cracked a smile. It'll be great. I'd really like that, Harry said. He really would. Exclamation point. Exclamation point. Exclamation point. Exclamation point. Exclamation point. Exclamation point. At the year-end feast, the hall was decorated in the green and silver of Slytherin House. Snape sat at the head table without a smile on his face. It was as if he expected victory, so much so that it gave him no pleasure. Dumbledore stood. I would like to say a few words before the beginning of the feast. Recent events have given me cause to award a last few points. To Mr. Ronald Weasley. For the best game of chess that Hogwarts has seen in years, I award Gryffindor 200 points. To Ms. Hermione Granger. For excellent thinking under great pressure, I award Gryffindor 200 points. With Weasley's award, Gryffindor had tied Slytherin for house points. With Granger's, Gryffindor led for the House Cup by 200. Dumbledore waved his wand, and the decorations changed from Slytherin green and silver to Gryffindor red and gold. The cheer from the Gryffindor table was enormous. The majority of Slytherins had dropped their jaws in astonishment. Tracy Davis was standing on a bench and shaking her fist, shouting, "It's not fair." Dumbledore smiled, and began to speak again. To Mr. Draco Malfoy. The entire hall went abruptly silent. For unity with your classmates in the face of adversity, I award you 200 points. And finally, to Mr. Harry Potter. For special services to the school, and an enormous amount of bravery, I award you 200 points. The cheer from the Slytherin table was deafening. Dumbledore again waved his wand, and the decorations reverted to Slytherin colors. Now that all points are awarded, and my taste for drama satisfied, let the feast begin. At the head table, Minerva McGonagall and Severus Snape both leaned over to speak to Dumbledore. That was a dirty trick, they said in unison. They immediately glared at one another. Dumbledore chuckled, and helped himself to some pudding. The end. Chapter 8. Harry Potter and the Slytherin selection is complete. Thanks to all my readers and special thanks to all my reviewers. Here is a sneak preview of the first chapter of Harry Potter and the Heir of Slytherin. Check out my profile for the link. The first chapter is up today. Harry Potter and the Heir of Slytherin sneak preview. Harry knew that it wouldn't be long before Draco and Mr. Malfoy arrived to take him away from the Dursleys. At the end of term, Harry and Draco had arranged for Harry to spend almost half the summer with the Malfoys. Harry had neglected to inform the Dursleys of these plans, trusting Mr. Malfoy to set things right upon his arrival. Better to ask forgiveness than permission, Harry thought. Mr. Malfoy was scheduled to pick up Harry 3 days after Harry's birthday. That day was today. Harry was shoving the last of his belongings into his trunk when he heard a muffled pop from the front of the house. "Petunia. What did you break now?" roared Vernon Dursley. Before Harry's Aunt Petunia could answer, there was a knock on the front door. Harry could hear his Uncle Vernon grumbling as he lumbered from the sitting room to the foyer. "We don't want any of your vacuums," Vernon bellowed immediately after opening the door. Harry strained to hear the reply. He could recognize Mr. Malfoy's voice, but the words were too soft to understand. "Come for Harry? That boy is upstairs, and that's where he will stay." Mr. Malfoy spoke again, this time with a slight edge in his voice. "Oh, you're one of those rotters. He's never going back to that school again. You and your lot have been nothing but a nuisance, and England would be better off without you. Good day." Harry heard a whip-like crack and a large thump. Harry could see it in his mind, his Uncle Vernon, who had been a boxer 15 years and 50 pounds ago, punching out Mr. Malfoy and tossing his limp body onto the lawn. Suddenly, Harry's failure to inform the Dursleys of his plan seemed like a terrible idea. Harry heard footsteps on the stairs. 2 sets of footsteps, one heavy, one light. His aunt and uncle, coming to exact some horrible punishment. Harry backed away from the door. There was a click as his door unlocked. Harry climbed onto his bed, pushing himself as far away from the door as possible. The door swung open.